gathering needs.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Vintage Super League Season 7. I'm Reed Duke here with Rich Shea. Rich, how you doing tonight?
Good, Reed. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. I've got to watch you play a lot in Vintage Super League, but this is one of the first times that we've actually had a chance to play together.
Yeah.
And Rich and I will get our match in the 2-0 bracket next round. That'll be the final match of the evening. But for right now, we're going to watch Rodrigo against Kevin in a Sultai mirror. Do you have any sense of how this matchup's going to go?
Well, I think that this mirror is going to be pretty heavily dependent on Deathrat Shaman, and I say that based on playing a lot of bug mirrors in Legacy. Whoever can stick a Deathrat Shaman is going to have a huge advantage. I think that, so Kevin's main strength, his strategy, is standstill, and he's made a lot of sacrifices. Against you, he'd have had a turn 1 Jace if he had had a land that came into play tapped, but instead he had Creeping Tar Pit, which creeps slowly onto the table. And
Right.
That cost him. And so, in a lot of ways, the come into play tapped man lands are part of his draw engine. They make standstill work, but they come at a pretty high cost.
Yeah, he mentioned when he had his match against you that he felt those costs of not being quite as fast, as sleek, as the other Sultai lists. Basically, you got to do a lot of the same things that he was doing, but for less mana was the problem with Pyroblast being so good, things like that. But that said, Standstill is a really powerful card, and getting to draw 3 cards for 2 mana, no questions asked, does happen some portion of the games. I think you made a great point that as Deathrite is normally a very good card in these Sultai mirrors, it's going to be even more important given that one player has Standstill.
Absolutely. I mean, if Rodrigo goes turn 1, land, Deathrite Shaman, go, then Kevin Cron's hand of land, mock, standstill suddenly looks unplayable.
Yep, that's true. Well, the players are ready, so let's see what they can make of this matchup. Hello, welcome back. We're watching Kevin Cron with Sultai Standstill against Rodrigo Togores with Sultai Green Sun Zenith. Bugstill against Team Leovold, as these players have named their decks.
Hey, remember that time that we were just talking about how a turn 1 Deathrite Shaman from Rodrigo would be kind of crummy for Kevin's standstill plan?
Yeah, and here it is. On the play, turn 1 Deathrite Shaman. Now, Rodrigo has taken a mulligan, so he's down a resource. But, yeah, I mean, you said it, Rich. That just takes away Kevin's best play that he had available to him.
Kevin, I guess now he can EE at 1 and stand still, but that's a much riskier play, and that walks into cards like Mental Misstep that, or even depending how he plays it, it could walk into Wasteland. So it looks like Kevin is assembling engineered explosives. I think I prefer if he's going to play Standstill, then I think I like leading with a fetch land better, because you can do both off the Lotus and protect from Wasteland.
Yeah, and if he did use the Lotus and have the explosives get countered, then he could switch gears and play the Ramanok Excavator. He also had available to him the cool play of crack Lotus and use 2 mana of the same color to make engineered explosives if he really wanted to play around Mental Misstep. A lot of options there, but he came up with a good one that forces Rodrigo to use his Force of Will.
Now, Rodrigo can... Oh, wow. So what do you like here? I think I just like getting Leo on the table. It's such a really hard card for Kevin to deal with.
It is, yeah. Now, the cost is...
It's not wasting. And
the cost is not wasting. But yeah, I think when in doubt, just get your powerful spells out first. That's usually the way I play with Wasteland is, I try to get an advantage on the board and then use Wasteland rather than, hoping to get lucky and mana screw them. Although sometimes that works too.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's I guess it depends on how much of an advantage you consider having a Deathrite Shaman to be. It's a little bit of an advantage, not a huge one. Here, the Ramu Nap Excavator is pretty good, actually. Although, even if Kevin Cron ends up drawing a Wasteland, Rodrigo gets to draw a card. And speaking of drawing cards, Rodrigo gets to do a lot of that these days.
Yep. Ancestral Recall, virtually the perfect card to draw off the top here. So that's going to really change the dynamic of the game depending on what he draws into.
Mm-hmm. The other thing to note is even if Kevin draws a Wasteland, he might get one activation out of it before Rodrigo eats it with the ability on the stack. You can only play a land when the stack is clear, and Wasteland goes on the stack, which means that Rodrigo could eat it with Deathrite Shaman in response.
Mm-hmm. So the sacrifice is the cost of activating the Wasteland. It's in the graveyard immediately, and then with the trigger on the stack, Deathrite Shaman can get it.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So what's Rodrigo going to consider while he's tutoring?
That's interesting. So, got Snuff out. Okay, so he's just not interested in dealing with the Excavator.
Yeah, Excavator is one of the very few sources of card advantage that sort of cuts through Leovold's ability.
Yeah, that's a little interesting that he'd wait until the upkeep, because I guess he's playing around Mindbreak Trap, but walking through Storm.
Or Mana Drain, in the case of Kevin's particular deck.
You're right. So now Kevin actually has a fighting chance. He can get rid of Leo, and then they're essentially at parity, modulo this Deathrite Shaman that Rodrigo just drew. And it's worth pointing out that we're back in a position where a standstill would not be a very good draw for Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin really needs to get a clean board to play the standstill, or at least have a creature land, but then you're playing with fire because it's so easy for Rodrigo to just draw a Wasteland.
Now, speaking of that, you know what I've been wanting to do, and this is probably a terrible idea, but if you had Dryad Arbor, she's a creature and a land, so you can fetch her with something that fetches forests. Mm-hmm. That you use your fetch lands to find a creature under standstill. I always thought that could be a neat idea. It's probably more terrible than good, but
it would be a very good way to combat standstill, especially because Rodrigo already has Green Sun Zenith in his deck.
Oh, that's true. And wow, Rodrigo drew a Time Walk, which is an enormous draw.
Geez, with Time Walk and Tarmogoyf, we're looking at Kevin getting potentially one more turn in this game.
Huh. So Goyf looks like he's a 6/7. That's not a small creature. And Rodrigo has a Brainstorm, and well, you can throw another Wasteland. This one's just about over. So I guess now Kevin would have to draw a removal spell for Tarmogoyf, and then another way to deal with both Deathrite Shaman. I think in a lot of ways, Kevin has been on the unfortunate side of pairings, in the sense that all of us are playing creature decks, and the standstill strategy really wants to play against bigger decks. It's much more effective against something like Oath, or something that's trying to use Mana Drain, or Paradoxical deck.
Right. There's also been a handful of spots in the games where you can point to Kevin having remarkably bad luck. Things like what you described in the intro of him. He had access to turn 1 Jace against me, which My only answer to a Jace is costs like 6 mana in Dragonlord Silumgar, but his land came into play tapped, and he couldn't do it. And then I had Abrupt Decay for Black Lotus. But yes, so many subtle things like that have just not gone in Kevin's favor tonight.
That's true.
He finds himself down a game here, but going to sideboarding, can he improve?
I thought that the Dragonlord Silumar was awesome technology. I was thrilled to see a Dragonlord in this. I have not seen that card seen play ever before.
Yeah, part of it's just wanting to play with fun cards, in Vintage Super League, but also I felt some of the weaknesses of my deck were, needing one more big card to win the game if I could get ahead, and then having one way to deal with Planeswalkers. And between those two and Silumgar also being a blue card that fits those slots, it seemed like a fine thing to put in my deck. Nice demonic tutor target.
I like it a lot. So Kevin, once again, on the wrong end of variance here. He was just shy of casting Leo, just shy of casting Jace. His hope, I think, was to, I don't know, not get double wastelanded, but that hope was dashed.
Yeah, so his opening hand had no black mana, which meant no turn 1 Leovold. He was able to sit on mana drain, but Rodrigo had 2 wastelands. The only good news for Kevin is that Rodrigo's hand doesn't really do much in the early turns. It has a lot of lands, and will eventually cast that Leovold, but Kevin has a couple draw steps to find a land, a source of blue mana would be great.
Really like to draw, I don't know, something, any black source that would let him cast Leo. An Underground Sea, and he's well on his way to Leo into Jace. Oh, but it looks like it's the end of the road for Mox Sapphire here. Oh, okay, I would have blown up Mox Sapphire, but I guess Rodrigo likes doing this on the upkeep. Oh, okay, well. This time there wasn't any penalty for that land arriving tapped, right? Actually, let's see. I guess you could have killed Leo with a Dismember.
Yeah, should he have put the Mox Emerald into play just for the... well, I guess it's a toss-up, because you could Dismember a Leovold, but you could also have your Mox Abrupt Decayed, which would be no fun.
Right. It's not a great place for Kevin to be. Okay, so he's casting it and saving 2 life. I think I would have invested the additional 2 life to try to have a backup copy, because letting Rodrigo untap with Leovold just doesn't seem like a fun way to go through life.
You mean if he had another Force of Will?
Yeah. Or drew into one. But it looks like Kevin's mana base has not worked particularly well for him. It looks like Rodrigo can build another sinkhole here to swallow up that Mox Emerald and then employ the littlest Jace. Looks like Jace first.
Jace first makes sense. That's the counterable of the 2 spells.
Yep.
Kevin can Dismember. He's not in dire straits just yet.
I agree. It's far from over, but it's certainly favoring Rodrigo at this point, just because Rodrigo can cast whatever he draws, and Kevin doesn't have that luxury right now. So I guess if Rodrigo doesn't draw anything and Kevin hits enough lands, then he can play Leovold, and that seems pretty good. I will say that mana drain hasn't looked particularly amazing tonight.
No, it's a tough card to get it to line up the way you need it to. Although it is, of course, super powerful when the games do slow down and you have a chance to get full value out of it. And
no, I agree. I'm happy that Mana Drain is getting printed in Iconic Masters. I think making vintage cards more available to people is good. I like that.
Yeah, that is great. What rarity is it going to be in Iconic Masters? Is that revealed yet?
I don't know. I think it's... Oh, how could it not be Mythic? It's Mana Drain.
I certainly hope so.
I guess the original is actually an uncommon, but
they should not hold true to that. They shouldn't feel shackled by making Mana Drain an uncommon.
I agree entirely. So no, I'm glad that card is gonna get into more players' hands. And speaking of getting into players' hands, Jace can help prevent that sort of thing from happening to Kevin's lands. This is looking pretty crummy here for Mr. Cron.
Yeah, he's multiple mana away from casting anything in his hand, facing down a Jace on 7. Not even any great answers to a Jace in the Sultai colors in Vintage. So I think we're just moments away from this being over.
I'm afraid so, and there's Standstill adding insult to injury, as Kevin wouldn't like to cast that even if we were able. Like I said, I think that Standstill is a fine deck to be playing right now. I just think that Kevin, unfortunately, had 3 opponents, all of whom are on creature decks, with little creatures that are easy to slip under Standstill. And we're getting very close to a Jace Ultimate here.
So if Kevin can find a blue land to cast the Ancestral, is there even any combination of cards he can find?
I can't even...
Black Lotus is already out of the picture, I believe.
Right.
Or no, maybe that was the first game.
Was that? Oh, okay. It's been quick. And, it looks like Jace has ultimated. Jace's ultimate pretty much deterministically ends the game here.
Yeah, Kevin has no more mana in his library.
I guess... I don't know. Is he trying to get Rodrigo to deck out? It looks like Rodrigo has 33 cards to his 6, so that play might not work.
No, I think Kevin's just enjoying his last moments of airtime here.
Sure, why not? Why not? Rodrigo isn't even bothering to play his creatures. I guess he's letting them rest a little bit. Oh, enjoying a card off library? Why not? Why not? Kevin denies Rodrigo the further enjoyment of visiting the library and reading a good book. Oh, that's exciting for Kevin. He can cast a spell. Now, does Rodrigo... No, Rodrigo's not even letting Kevin have the feel-good moment of countering a death.
Okay, so that's going to be Rodrigo at 1 and 2 for the evening, and Kevin Cron 0-3 with the Sultai bug still. As you mentioned, not the pairings he wanted, and a couple tough spots in the games where things didn't go the way he needed them to. Tough night for him, but still plenty of time to make a comeback. Absolutely. And the final match of the evening will be us, Rich, me against you. Well, Sultai versus Jeskai.
I'm going to try to win, but if you beat me, I hope it's with your Dragon Lord, because that's pretty awesome.
All right, well, I'd be happy with that outcome as well, but either way, we'll hope for a good match.
Absolutely. It should be fun.
Okay, we'll cut to ads and see you for the final match of the evening here on Vintage